feel like that film was a victory lap for all of us, really, because it's a wonderful manifestation of the ideas that Howard lived and stood for, because there's all this passion and all this, you know, eloquent, you know, speaking about social justice issues, about war. And the thing is, this film is getting now, just beginning to be, but increasingly will be used in schools. It's been divided up into sections so teachers can use it in different ways, and curriculum's getting developed to use with it, so that it's going to be, for a long time to come, an important piece of work that reaches young people, because I think young people today, they're learning so much more from visual media than books, sadly, but it's reality. And I think when they see these amazingly moving and passionate speeches of people throughout American history standing up for justice, standing against war, that Howie's message keeps, you know, reverberating through many more generations of people. And I agree with Myla. I didn't know if it was just me, but it seemed like in the last couple of years, every time I heard Howie speak, he spoke very directly against war, more than I'd heard him earlier. Doesn't that seem true? That
I felt that way too.
Yes, that he was getting much more directly opposing, helping people think about the futility and the violence, and also the, you know, the futility in the sense of accomplishing absolutely nothing. And, you know, this idea that he was saying between war and passivity, there are 1,000 possibilities.
Yes.
And getting people to move off the idea that if you can't have it your way, then you go to fight over it. No, that there's a huge landscape there for exploring other ways to figure out problems without people killing each other. So that's...
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's just one other thing that I brought tonight that it's so interesting, because really this was also in the last year. This was, he gave a talk, he was in Greece. I mean, how this man did this, I don't know. He was like going all the time.
Yeah.
But he was in Greece when was this? It was at the, let's see, French Institute in Athens, Greece in May, okay? May, before, he died in January, this was May of '09. And he was talking about democracy, of course, in Athens. He has to give a talk about democracy. But I just got, they want to take the speech and they want to publish it. And I was looking at the transcript. And I wanted to just read you this one part of it that, see, even in a talk about democracy, of course, he has to talk about war. And he said, this is part of his speech, he said, violence by its nature poisons the soul of people who engage in it. Mm-hmm. And then even if it seems to achieve a certain end, that end becomes in some way twisted. Mm-hmm. After all the violence that has taken place, presumably you've brought about change, but suddenly those changes disappear and something else happens. Mm. Hannah Arendt, the political philosopher who studied revolutions and violence and studied the Nazis, said there's a cost to be paid when you use violence to achieve your ends. And it is not just the cost that you administer to the victims of your violence, people you bomb. It is not just that cost. The cost is to you who engage in that violence. So when you think about it in terms of political philosophy, which talks about means and ends, and the relationship between means and ends, then you see where violence fits in. You have to admit, even if you think the end is good, even if you think you're doing it for good ends, the means are horrible. Even generals and war makers say, oh, war is terrible, war is hell. The generals say this. They all say this. Everybody agrees that war is hell, but it's for a good cause. So the means are unquestionably bad, but the end, even if the end is proclaimed as a good cause, even if it might actually be a good cause, it is never certain. The means are certain, and they are certainly horrible. The ends, however good they seem to be, are never certain. They are unpredictable. The result of violence, whether in war or revolution, is unpredictable. This means that we must find ways that are between these two poles. Too often we've been brought up to believe it is just one or the other, as Nancy had said. Either you follow the procedures or you engage in violence, though there's a whole spectrum of possibilities, an infinite number of possibilities between due process and procedures on the one hand, and violence on the other. And this is part of course my father didn't write this speech. My father never wrote his speech. So, you know,
spoke it.
incredible. 87 years old, in Greece. May, he died in January. So I just wanted to, just to show you, this was his passion in these last few years.
May I ask you all to stand up
So
and give her a
thank you so
standing
much.
ovation?
Oh, thank you.